Welcome back to Jeff Pratt Talks Hoops. Today, I've got something much more chill and toned down compared to the normal content you're used to seeing on my channel up to this point, which is a lot of long or short form narrative stuff. But I really wanted to branch into more conversational styles of videos because to me, growing up in NBA YouTube, that was my favorite type of content, getting to watch my favorite YouTubers with no filter, just giving their opinion on a wide variety of topics. And that is exactly what we have here today. I'm going to be ranking the best duos in the NBA heading into the 2023 regular season. As you can see, I've got quite a few on this list so far. So it's not really the best. It's just ranking most of them. We're going to put them in a variety of tiers on Tier Maker, which is an extremely popular platform. There are about 8 or 9 that I left off of this list. And I apologize if your favorite team's duo is not on this list, like the Rockets, for example. The main reason for that is either they're very young, they're on a horrible team, or they just haven't played enough together to really gauge how well they mesh as a duo. So I'm excited to do this. Let's start on the bottom. Why not? We've got Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. Based off what we saw last year, which is a very interesting case. We saw them on 2 different teams as a duo. Obviously with the Phoenix Suns, they were not the go-to duo at any point for that franchise. But then when both of them were traded for Kevin Durant to Phoenix, they immediately became, Mikal was by far the top player on that team. Cam Johnson, you've got other guys like Nicholas Claxton, Spencer Dinwiddie, but he really emerged as a great number 2. At least, realistically, Cam Johnson on a championship caliber team is a 3. So we've got Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges on the Brooklyn Nets in B tier. All right, we're going to move on to, this is a fun one, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. From a talent perspective, this is an A-plus duo. I'll say that right now, just from a talent perspective. I think all of us agree with that. However, there are serious concerns, and I'm going to put them in the A tier right now, but there are serious concerns about how these two work together. We saw when the Mavs traded for Kyrie last season, they just could not win with both of them on the floor. They couldn't find a way to win. They ended up missing the playoffs, getting the 10th overall pick. Derek Lively, who is going to be a good addition for them down the stretch. So, Mavericks fans, they tanked at the end of the season to try to maneuver for draft positioning. It ended up working out for them fine. It was a bit shameful, in my opinion. But I'm going to give these two the benefit of the doubt to a certain extent, because I have serious concerns over 2 really ball-dominant guards working together in this system in Dallas. But from a talent perspective, in the NBA, talent tends to win. That's just how it's worked. All right, we've got the Chicago Bulls, Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. I'm going to be sliding them in the B tier right now. But this is another case where it just hasn't worked on the court. And unlike Kyrie and Luka, we have seen enough from Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan to understand that it just might not be there for the Bulls. They don't have enough between them, Nikola Vucevic. It's just not the right fit. So I'm going to put them in the B tier right now, and I may end up sliding them into the C tier. Next up, we've got Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns. I'm going to slide them into the top of the B tier. Definitely better than these two, especially from a talent perspective. Another case where hasn't really worked out up to this point, but we can give them the benefit of the doubt to a certain extent. I think Karl Anthony Towns, we've seen enough from him to unfortunately know the guy's not really a winner in the NBA. He hasn't proven that, but Anthony Edwards could be, and he has shown an ability to fight. The Timberwolves gave Denver a lot of trouble in the first round of the playoffs last year due to Anthony Edwards and how he performed in that series. So right now we're putting them at the top of the B tier. Maybe they end up sneaking into the end of the A tier, but I kind of doubt it. We do have a team that's going to find its way into the A tier here, though. Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Funny, we're talking about talent a lot here. And this duo is not that talented compared to a lot of guys. Definitely not as talented as Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns. You can make a case they're not as talented as Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. And that's because Jimmy Butler is an incredible NBA player, but the guy is simply not that great at basketball compared to a lot of other stars in the league. And that says a lot to his credit for how hard he works, and he picks his spots. He knows his game. He knows his limitations. It's very impressive to see this guy play. And Bam Adebayo, one of the most underrated defenders in the league, Matt Moore on Twitter, has been claiming he's been behind him for the DPOY campaign for the last 3 years now. Just hasn't been getting the votes. But if you watch this guy play, he very well could be the best defender in the league. And the talent might not necessarily be there, but the results have been there. Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram. We haven't seen enough of this duo together. And when we have seen it, they have consistently underperformed. So I'm going to slide them in the B tier. Now, this is tough between these two because similar situations, not a huge sample size for either of these duos, to be fair, and neither of them have performed that well. I'm probably going to slide these guys to the top of the B tier just because I think their ceiling is higher. You know what? I'm not sure it is, because Karl-Anthony Towns, when he's playing at his best, which is not in the playoffs, he has not played well in the postseason so far in his relatively young NBA career. But when he's at his best, he's a top 3 big man in this league, and Anthony Edwards is a rising star. So I think how we have them ranked in the B tier right now is fair. Now, this is one of my favorite duos in the NBA. They're very young, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Josh Giddey, I am going to put them right behind Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson, and I would love to put them ahead of either of these two in the B tier, but the reality is Josh Giddey is still very young. It's not his fault. Had a great sophomore campaign last year, but he still has a long way to go. Shai is arguably my favorite player in the league right now, incredibly talented scorer, and this is a really fun duo. It's going to be a really fun duo to watch for the next 5 or 6 years. Hopefully Sam Presti and the Thunder can keep them together. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. They're going to slide right up to the top of the A tier for me right now. They're the best duo out of everyone we've seen, especially from a team success right now. Klay Thompson is not what he used to be. He has dropped off. A large part of that has been due to the myriad of injuries he has sustained over the course of the last few years. It's not really his fault. He's just not the same player. But Steph Curry is still playing at an elite level. I think he is the best point guard in the NBA heading into the 2023 season, coming off a year in which he averaged 29, 6, and 6, and was incredibly efficient from behind the arc. I believe shot around 43 to 45% from 3 off the top of my head. So he still has it. This team just won a championship 2 years ago. They played pretty well in the postseason this last year, despite not having a ton of talent compared to prior Warriors teams around them. So they're sliding to the top of the A tier. Almost considered putting them A+, but can't really justify that with how old they are, and especially Klay and his drop in talent. All right, we've got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and they're the first team that's going to be in the A+ tier. From a talent perspective, I think this is the best duo in the NBA. In terms of talent, they're 2 wings, which is the most valuable position in the league in today's era by far. And you've got a guy in Jason Tatum who is a bona fide top 10 player in the league. Some people think he's a top 5 player in the league. It varies for me, depending on how he plays. Jaylen Brown just became the richest player in NBA history. At least he was when he signed that contract. Anthony Davis, on a per-year basis, I believe, is now the richest player in NBA history. But Jaylen got a supermax with the Celtics, so Boston is going to be keeping these two together. This duo hasn't really gotten over the hump yet. They made the finals. They've been to, 3 of the last 4 Eastern Conference finals. So you look at that on paper and you say, hey, that's really successful. But you look at the rest of these rosters for Boston over the years, and they've had enough talent to win a championship by now, and that hasn't happened. So the results are not there. They are probably not going to be my top duo in the NBA. I believe they are a top 3 duo in the league, and they're our first A+ pairing. Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam, sliding them into the B tier here. And what I'm realizing right now is we need to move DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine down to C, and as well as Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. And for these guys, it's not even really their fault. They're just young. They're still putting it together. But these guys are not working as a duo in Chicago. So that needs to be figured out. Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam, who knows how much longer this is an actual duo in the NBA. We've heard significant rumors over the past few months and recently in the past few days that Siakam could be moved. We know the Hawks want him very badly. It sounds like that decision is coming to a head very shortly. And who knows? Maybe by the time this video is released, Siakam will already be on a different team. But as of right now, he's with Scotty Barnes. and they are an okay duo. Nothing to write home about. And in reality, I think I'm going to move them to the top of the C tier here. I think that's fair. They're not talented enough to get it done as a duo, as a 1 and 2 on a team. They're not making the playoffs at this point. But Scotty Barnes is young. Siakam is a great player. Anthony Davis and LeBron James. They're going into the A tier for me. And the question is, are they going to be above Curry and Klay or below them? And I think they're probably going to be above them. Just because while LeBron is aging, he's still a bottom half of the top 10 player in the league. For me, I think that's the case for a lot of people. And Anthony Davis, when he's healthy, he's a top 5 player in the league. And that's not a conversation a lot of people want to have. But the guy just got his money for LA. He's going to be with the Lakers for at least the next couple seasons. And when these guys are playing together and playing well, which is not as often as Lakers fans would want, they are both pretty injury prone. They are damn near unstoppable. This is a really, really good duo. Not quite on the tier of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, in my opinion. I understand if Lakers fans disagree with that, or anyone out there, but they are upper echelon A, and they might end up at the bottom of the A+ tier by the time we're done here. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. They're going in A. They're going behind Curry and Klay. Incredibly talented. I think you combine the talent of these two players and they might be better than Steph and Klay, but the team success has not been there. Neither of them can stay on the floor and stay healthy. This is the biggest what-if duo in the NBA right now because every offseason it feels like a ton of people say, hey, if the Clippers can just stay healthy, this is their year. They're putting it together, and then they never stay healthy. Never. And I'm not sure at this stage in either of their careers with them aging well over 30 that it's going to happen. I seriously doubt that it will. I would love to see it happen. I think they can make some serious noise in the Western Conference Finals. They almost did in the bubble. But as of right now, we're taking them for how talented they are, and they've played together long enough to know what they are capable of when they're on the floor together. But they're not better than Steph and Klay. Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, they are sliding to the top of our A+ tier right now. Talent-wise, not better than Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, in my opinion, and that is because Jamal Murray is just not on the same level as those guys. Nikola Jokic obviously been the best player in the league the last few years. He was the best player in the postseason last year, should have won regular season MVP. It was a pity award that was given to Joel Embiid. Not that Joel Embiid didn't have a fantastic year either. I find myself, whether it's on this channel or on DraftKings, etc., saying that it was a pity award for Embiid, and that was the case. In reality, they just didn't want to see Jokic get his third MVP back to back to back. And I understand that. Voter fatigue is a very real thing in the MVP narrative discussion. But Jokic proved why he deserved it again last postseason. He was the best player in the league by a long shot. Jamal Murray was incredible in the playoffs. At times, he was better than Jokic for this Denver squad. So if we're taking them as they played throughout the course of the postseason last year, they are the best duo in the NBA. There's only one on this list the rest of the way that could be better than them, and we'll get to that. Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr., and a lot of people when I've been researching these duos think it's Ja and Desmond Bane. I get that. I think Jaren is a better player than Bane. I don't think it's really close in terms of their total impact. Jaren's still averaging 18 points per game. Defense is through the roof, obviously reigning defensive player of the year. Where I put them is interesting. They're going to be in the B tier. I think I'm probably going to put them right below the young Wolves, just in terms of impact, because this team's been good enough to make some runs in the playoffs with these two as the best players on their team, and it hasn't happened yet. Now, they've been a little better than the Wolves. I think this is fair. I think putting them here is fair. We'll reevaluate. I could see them getting swapped, because they are incredibly talented. Ja Morant is, a top 15, 20 player in this game right now. Giannis and Jrue Holiday. They're going to go into the A+ tier for me, and I know a lot of people will put them over Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I will not. I do think that Jrue Holiday, while he's not on the level of Tatum or Brown, not even close in my opinion, he's a fantastic player, maybe the most underrated player in the league, and that's not something you hear often for stars. But it's hard for a star to be underrated. in today's NBA, but Jrue Holiday really is underrated. And Giannis is obviously a top 3 player in the game, top 4, depending on who you ask. Some people think he's the best player in the game. This has been interesting because we've seen both of these two teams face off pretty consistently throughout the years in the postseason. And in their latest meeting in the playoffs 2 years ago, the Celtics ended up winning that. I think with how these young stars in Boston are trending upwards, they are better right now than the Bucks, but it's very, very close. Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. We're going to slide the Cavs down to the B tier. I am going to put them, I'm going to put them below the Wolves. I've done a 180 here. No one's had to convince me. It's just the way my mind's working, because I'm thinking from a talent perspective, they're not better than Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns. And from a team success perspective, they only had one season together and they were great in the regular season, but they got killed by the Knicks in the playoffs. And Darius Garland was atrocious. As much as I love him, Donovan Mitchell did not show up consistently. Whereas the Wolves, well, they also went out in the first round. At least they gave the reigning NBA champs some serious trouble. So I think I'm going to roll with this. Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. This is a duo that I am going to put over the young Wolves squad. Fantastic run in the regular season for them last year. Talent-wise, they're probably not better than Minnesota, but I think they certainly fit better on the court. They gave the Warriors a lot of trouble. I was hoping that they were going to win that series in the playoffs. That ultimately didn't happen. Golden State's postseason success really helped them out. This Kings duo, De'Aaron Fox had, he was never going to win Most Improved Player last year because Lauri Markkanen was incredible, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. If Markkanen wasn't incredible, Shai jumped from an already very good player to a truly elite player, so he was going to win it. But De'Aaron Fox took a huge step forward, shot over 50% from the field for the first time in his career. You saw the maturity and his decision-making and shot-taking tendencies, and Domantas Sabonis led the league in rebounds. A great playmaker. This duo is really fun, and I think they're only going to continue to get better. James Harden and Joel Embiid. Interesting one here. I could have gone with Embiid and Maxey, and that's likely what the duo is going to be in the coming weeks here. But as of right now, the Harden situation is very fluid, very tricky. He is still on the team. He still wants to go to the Clippers. The Sixers and Daryl Morey are adamant that they will not trade him unless they get a great return back for him. So I'm just going to pair these two together for right now, understanding that in a couple weeks they likely will no longer be a duo, but they are an A-tier duo. I'm going to put them at the bottom of the A-tier because from a team success perspective, they're not even close to what Bam and Jimmy have done over the years. From a talent perspective, they're a massive, massive upgrade. I mean, the Heat are really punching above their weight class here. You look at the talent-wise, Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, more talented than this duo, probably. The Wolves are definitely more talented. You can make a case for the Cavs, the Grizzlies, the Pelicans. You could even make a case for the Thunder being more talented than Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. They are not the most talented basketball players on the planet, but they fit very well together, and they've been able to get it done in the postseason. Tyrese Haliburton and Miles Turner sliding into the C tier here. I think we got some maneuvering to do here. I'm going to put them here. I'm going to slide Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam here. I'm going to put Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson at the top of the C tier. I do think Haliburton and Turner are better than Siakam and Barnes. Haliburton's one of my favorite players in the league. I think he's an up-and-coming point guard already, top 7, 6 in the league, depending on who you ask. And Miles Turner is always hurt, but when he's not hurt, he's an incredible two-way player. I mean, one of the best defenders in the league was the blocks per game leader a couple years back. I think did that for a few seasons in a row, actually. Really in Indiana, it's the Tyrese Haliburton show. Then you've got Benedict Mathurin. You can make a case that the duo is really between those two guys, but Miles Turner is the main pick and roll partner for Haliburton, so he had to be here. As a result, their upside is capped because Turner is not that great of a player, but they're still a really good duo, and as Haliburton continues to get better, they're going to get better. All right, the Hawks, Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, bottom of the B tier here. Yeah, bottom of the B tier. I'm going to put them below the Thunder. Talent-wise, Trae Young's incredible. DeJounte Murray is one of the most underrated players in the league. Atlanta did a great job with his extension this offseason. Got him at a very good number. Hasn't been working on the floor. Didn't work last year. It was their first year together, so we can give them the slight benefit of the doubt. But in reality, having two small, skinny guards who Trae is a complete net negative on defense, and he shot the ball incredibly inefficiently last year. Dejounte was pretty good. This duo is solid. They're never going to get anywhere with these two as their de facto best players and then a significant drop off to the rest of the roster. But if Atlanta does trade for Pascal Siakam, then they could be sneaky good. Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. Jalen Brunson was fantastic last year. Julius Randle was not. He hasn't been fantastic for a couple seasons now since that breakout campaign with the Knicks a while back. So they're going into the B tier here. The question is where? I'm going to put them ahead of this Hawks team, behind the Thunder. And I know what some of you are saying. Really? Shai and Giddey better than Brunson and Randle? You got to go look at what Josh Giddey did last year. Not a lot of people are averaging 18, 8, and 6 at the guard position in the NBA. And he was doing that with the ball not in his hands a lot because Shai's usage rate was so massive. So I think that they are better. I think that they're better than this Hawks pairing right here. All right, finally, we've got our last A-plus tier duo here. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, very small sample size between these two. We didn't get to see a lot of them together. We saw flashes of greatness in the playoffs. And the Suns are taking a very interesting route where they've got Durant, Booker, Bradley Beal, DeAndre Ayton on massive contracts, way over the second apron. And then the rest of the team's on minimums. And that's it. I don't think it's going to work out for Phoenix this season, especially to start the year. They're going to be significant growing pains. But in terms of talent, there's a legitimate case to be made. This is the most talented duo in the league. Now, the Nuggets, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic handled them in the postseason. So I'm not going to put them as the best. But I do think that they are talent-wise better than Tatum and Brown. I think Durant and Tatum is so close right now. They're probably 4 or 5 for me in terms of ranking among the league. 4 or 5 or 5 and 6, depending on how you want to look at it. They're interchangeable. But Devin Booker is a much, much better player than Jaylen Brown is right now. And that is the reasoning for why I have put the Suns over the Celtics. So this is what we've got. Thank you so much for watching. If you tuned in, as I said before, I will be dropping the link in the description. I created this tier maker. Fill it out yourself. Make a video on it or respond to my comments. Respond to me on Twitter @ByJeffPratt with how you would do things differently. Stay tuned for a new video next week.